I knew there was more to that.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call the Douglas School Committee to order on February 5th, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. I'd like to read the Douglas Public Schools mission statement. The Douglas Public School offer a diverse learning experience that meet the academic, social, physical, and emotional needs of all of our students. We provide a safe, supportive, and challenge learning environment in which students may achieve academic success and personal growth. Decisions are made in the best interest of our students. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, hello, yeah.
Thank you so much. I'd like to call our student representatives, Erin Piscano and Lily George, please up. I love the outfit, ladies. I'm sure you're going to tell us all about it.
Yeah.
We are. Actually, no, we're here for show.
That's your normal? Wow.
Yes, actually, the hats and the boa are actually being used in upcoming school events. DECA districts recently qualified to the state round, and a little piece about DECA states is actually we have a bit of a apparel. Usually many people wear cowboy hats. I've seen some alien costumes, so we just got the hats for our DECA organization. And then the boa is going to be used in our upcoming Winter Carnival dance routine, the lip sync.
We got this all today, so
Yes.
we were like, let's share a little bit of it.
Absolutely.
To the glow and festivities. So we'll start off. We talked about what we have recently. We had midterms a couple weeks ago, and we made it through, powered, survived, and now we're into the second half of the school year. So everyone's starting their new courses and stuff if they've continued on the schedule.
Recently, actually, during our advisory, we also expanded into the MyCap program, which, if you don't know, was a bit of a financial literacy program. Basically, it teaches seniors working on financial literacy techniques, budgeting, how they handle expenses, as well as loans for college. Freshmen worked on vision boards and self-interest investigations, while sophomores worked on gaining employment opportunities and prepping for interviews. And juniors also, as well, worked on interview skills and resume building.
We also had a group of students attend Nichols College Leadership Academy. I believe this is the sophomore and juniors grades that do this. They just gain and go to different workshops and stuff. I don't get to attend it myself, so I don't know too much, but that's what I've heard from my peers.
And we also have our Winter Carnival coming up on February 14th. Students have been prepping for Winter Carnival for the past few months, and we finally come right around the corner. We've got window painting, you might have seen as you walked in, as well as a lip sync routine coming up, which is, of course, the boa.
And then the hats. So DECA states, students just competed at districts, and we have a total of 12 going to states this year, which is a lot for us. We had several new DECA people, like new to the club, actually place this year, and which is really impressive for them. 7 students in awards, and then we have 2 attending for Quiz Bowl, and it's going to be great.
Yes, we're also getting our school store, the Tiger's Den, getting certification once again, school-based enterprise, which we'll be receiving at the state competition. Additionally, one thing I also didn't mention is this Saturday we'll also be hosting the Snowball Dance, which will go towards points for Winter Carnival. So the grade with the highest attendance will earn a certain amount of points for the upcoming competition. And additionally, seniors also finishing their Common Apps and gearing up for the final sprint of senior year, as we are here.
They're also getting some back their decisions. We have some that are already decided on where they're going, which is exciting. And then, so now upcoming events we've mentioned is Winter Carnival. This is, as she said, February 14th. So we're 2 class officers for the seniors. So we've been spending our late nights here, we're getting it ready, prepping everything. Still have paint on myself from the windows.
Yeah, and our sports teams, too, have been quite active this season. Our track teams and basketball teams are both nearing the end of the regular season. As the students looking to qualify for states and various events for track and fields, we'll be finding that out soon. Additionally, if you want to touch a little bit more on our upcoming MyCap events.
Oh yeah, so we have MyCap happening next Tuesday. Students will, instead of an advisory or intervention, will have that be replaced, and it's towards right before lunch block, and this is about an hour session to help prepare students for the future, giving them skills that they wouldn't be able to learn in the classroom.
Oh, and the one other thing I did want to mention is actually National Honor Society is expanding this new program this year. I'm not sure if you're familiar, but the Presidential's Award, and students that completed a certain amount of community service hours will actually receive a medal with a letter. I believe there's a president's signature on it, and I believe it's bronze 100 hours, silver 175, but gold 250. So we are both going for gold here as representatives from Douglas.
We only have like 100 hours left too, so. Wow.
Get a short timeline there, right?
Yeah, we have
we'll
to
make
get that
it.
done by April, but it's no problem.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, whoa. More information, because you're seniors, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Go ahead and ask your question.
I really just want to know what song you're singing that goes with the boa.
So our theme is High School Musical, if you haven't seen when you
Ah.
So Fabulous, that from it.
Yep.
We have someone playing Sharpay, we have a whole routine. It's gonna be great.
That's awesome.
Awesome. And so, did you get accepted for college, or what are we doing?
I ended up applying all regular decision because I was so indecisive about my essay, but so far I actually got a full ride to Worcester State. And
Awesome.
then the rest of my colleges we're waiting for in March, so we'll see.
I got accepted to almost all the UMasses so far, and they've given me their honors programs, which is nice, and offered those up to me.
Congratulations.
Amazing, congratulations.
Awesome.
You guys are so humble. Thank you so much. You should be proud.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. So congratulations. We look forward to you coming back before you graduate.
Oh, of course.
We look forward to seeing you at graduation, wearing your medal, your gold medal.
Valedictorian right here too.
Woohoo!
Congratulations again.
Is that official? Is that official?
I think it's
Is it
official,
Facebook
yeah.
or, well, wait, Snapchat?
That's right before. She's won. She's got it.
She's got it. Love it.
Confidence.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming in. You were well-spoken and well-poised, and I know DECA is a strong part of that, right? So thank you so much for coming in. We are honored to have you come before us.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, ladies.
Anybody here for public comment? Seeing that there is none, any old business we need to discuss?
There is not.
Moving over to the new business and superintendent's report, please.
All right. Welcome, everyone. For those of you watching from home, there was a call, a text, and email that went out that we will have a snow day tomorrow, so enjoy it, stay safe, be careful with the roads in the afternoon. It's supposed to be cold. We're supposed to get a lot of rain, icy conditions, especially in that 11 to 3 time slot. So we wanted to make sure that our buses, we were worried about the buses and student drivers being able to get home safely. Do you have this up on the PowerPoint? Got it. So the first part of my report is the FY26 preliminary proposed budget. And as Ms. Keegan asked me to reemphasize the key words preliminary and proposed. And I'll say it again, preliminary and proposed. FY26 budget. As we've always done, and we just did it earlier today, we have a copy of our mission statement about our values, our beliefs, and what we do that starts off this presentation, and Chairperson just read it. And then we have our blueprint, which is our strategic plan of what we focus in on, and that's academic excellence, community partnerships, the well-being of all, local and global citizenship, and a growth mindset. Our goal for FY26 is to propose a real needs budget for FY26. So doing what we can do, given our constraints, to make sure teachers and students have what they need to succeed. So it looks a little bit different on paper. Unfortunately, it didn't translate here, but we're going to start off with our preliminary budget drivers. These are some of the big buckets of things that are driving not only our FY26, but all budgets that we do. First on the list is salaries and wages, and this makes up 85% of all school budgets across the Commonwealth. Not only does it include salaries, it includes steps, it includes lanes, it includes honorariums, it includes longevity, and that is a 6.68% increase from last year for an additional $900,000. I know it's a big number, but again, that's consistent with what is 85% of our roughly $20 million budget is salary. I also want to point out that we've been fortunate in working with the town. When I first started and in previous years, we were seeing an appropriation of 1%, 1.5%, 2% above our previous year's appropriation. This year, we have a 4% appropriation over our FY25 budget, which is roughly about $613,000. And the reason I want to highlight that, and again, a great working relationship with the town, and we're thankful to see that increase continuing to go up. But the amount of money that we receive from the town every year, and again, this is consistent across the Commonwealth, does not cover our contractual obligations for staff across the board. So as you can see, it's a $909,000 increase, and our increased appropriation is approximately $613,000. So we have to fund that different ways. Next on the line is other compensation, substitutes across the board, overtime, and stipends. That's a 3.17% increase. Our contractual obligations, not including sped or building maintenance, is 5.9% to about $23,000. Supplies, textbooks, memberships, and miscellaneous, that's a 25% increase. And again, that's consistent with what we have done over the years. Unfortunately, what we've had to do is we present it in March. We usually end up removing it from the budget, and then we're hopeful at the end of the year that there's funding for it. But that's all of our supplies, our textbooks, our memberships, and miscellaneous.
Including
ahead.
technology as well, like the Chromebook leases and things of that nature. So there's a lot that's encompassed in that line.
Custodians, grounds, equipment, building maintenance, repairs, a 12% increase. Later on, we'll be talking about the statement of interest for the primary school. We have an old building. It's costing more to keep it up. Things break. So that's a 12% increase. Utilities, anyone who drives a car, owns a home, knows that that's an increase. And I was actually quite shocked that it was only a 2.57% increase from 25 to 26. And then special education, medical, and therapeutic is a 3.26% increase. So in the first bucket of drivers, that's really some of the big ticket numbers that drive our budget from 25 to 26. Next is transportation, and transportation is a little unique here in Douglas, in that the transportation budget is not funded out of the school's operating budget. It's funded out of a separate budget by the town and a separate warrant article by the town. So the money that you see here isn't from our budget. The town takes care of that. But remember, there's only one bucket of money. So there's that. So regular ed transportation saw a 6% increase from 25 to 26. Those are all of our Telstone buses that pick up students and transport them to and from school. The big jump is in our in-district and out-of-district special education transportation to approximately $400,000 or a 44% increase. So I want to talk about that for a little bit because it is a big number. After we proposed our budget to you in the town in April for our public hearing and in May for town meeting approval, from that period through roughly October, November, we identified 6 or 7 students who had to go out of district for a variety of needs. They weren't on our radar. Some of them moved in. Some things happened that they weren't on our radar and they weren't in our original budget in April and then in May when we presented to the town, but afterwards. So when we found out about that over the course of the school year, we had to fund that out of our FY25 budget. Going forward for next year, because we now have 5, 6, 7 additional students who need transportation, who we didn't have in our budget in 24 and 25, that's what the increase and the such dramatic increase in transportation from 25 to 26, why there's that number. And the last bucket is revenue budget drivers. And as I said, during the FY25 year, special education tuition costs, transportation, contractual services went up dramatically. So not only did we see an increase in transportation for those students that had to be placed out. But we also, this year, had to fund their tuition and had to fund their transportation. Roughly about $600,000. Now, we did not go back to the town for that. What we used to fund the tuition and the transportation is we dipped into circuit breaker for that. So as of now, we did not have to go back to our operating. We did not have to go back to our school choice fund. We funded that out of our circuit breaker. That takes care of FY26. The issue that we have, and Ms. Keegan will talk about it momentarily, is we drew down our circuit breaker to almost zero, which means that our carryover for FY26, or our ability to use circuit breaker to offset any of our FY26 budget, isn't there because we had to use it to fund FY25 needed expenses. The other thing that comes up, and again, we've had this conversation with the town, is can we go back to the town for additional funding? In conversations with the town manager, he was looking to go up above the $613,000 appropriation to help fund the school budget. Due to the fact that we now need to fund transportation at an additional $389,000, the money that he was looking to reallocate to the schools above the 613 now needs to go to offset the additional transportation for FY26. And again, there's only one pot of money for everyone. So that money he was looking to allocate to the schools now needs to go to fund the transportation. As Ms. Keegan says, she's always prudently conservative, so we're grateful that we don't draw down we didn't draw down circuit breaker, and we had the ability to do it. And we're also thankful that we have that good working relationship with the town, that they're funding that for 26. But the ability to go back and ask for additional really isn't there, because that additional is taken up by the transportation costs. That's a lot to digest. Please ask questions. Courtney and I have been looking at these numbers for probably 2 months straight, going back and forth with conversations. So we're used to it. You're seeing it now for the first time. So if you have questions, please ask.
Madam Chair, may I ask?
Absolutely.
So I guess going forward, first of all, thank you, Ms. Keegan, for being prudently conservative, so we're not, in the red. So I think that needs to be acknowledged and appreciated, so thank you. I'm thinking about going forward, where we didn't know about these kiddos being on our radar. For 2026 funding, I know circuit breaker is usually based on the year prior, right? Now, have those kiddos been included going forward? So we should be getting, hopefully, get funding that should hopefully cover the additional kids now, right?
Well, Ms. Keegan.
Well, right now, I just have a preliminary projection that's
Yep.
been prepared. But at this juncture, when it's in February, I am very conservative, because we don't have, so it goes by each student, the way circuit breaker works, it's each student. They have what's called, it used to be called the foundation amount, they call it a threshold now. It's around 51,000 that comes off of that. So say your tuition is 100,000 for one student. 51,000 comes off of that. Then there's that eligible amount. And then it's anywhere, the law says up to 75%. They have been covering 75% the last few years. But who knows what's going to happen going forward, honestly. But, so actually the last 4 years, because I actually cut off, I've got many, many years as a history. So for the last 4 years, it has been 75%. Before that, it could have been 57% or 60 or 65%. So right now, as far as the offsets in the budget document I gave you this evening, what we have incorporated, if you go to the last page, because this is also an important part of the, the offsets. We haven't gotten to that page yet where we give you just the one number, but this is actually breaking it down. So right now, the two largest offsets is school choice and circuit breaker. But right now, in February, I have 1.2 million. And then for circuit breaker, I have it at 500,000. Now, for a number of reasons, I'm being very conservative right now. This is our first, right out of the gate. And we have an offset for preschool revolving fund of $219,696. The middle school athletic program, $33,000. Douglas High School athletic program, $76,000. We have, preliminarily, figuring the same amount of $280,000 as far as the, but who knows? That's federal. I have no idea. Maybe anyway, that all just, we won't even go there. So $280,000 is what we had in FY '25. So I'm budgeting that. And in Title I, I'm budgeting $93,299. In SPED Early Childhood Education, $10,515. These are the grants that we always got before, all the time, that we had. So as far as federal funds, we have a little bit of an exposure there, and I'm a little bit concerned about, just under $400,000. So I'm very concerned about that as well. So right now, well, let me reiterate again, February is a preliminary budget. I think we all saw what happened last week. It was, while we were busy doing all of this, it was pretty frightening to get those emails and from the state and federal and MASBO and MASS and AMSC, about the funding thing just with Title I, never mind all the other things going on. So I don't know what to expect going forward, and we'll be having continuing conversations regarding that. And also, I'll be bringing that to the attention of the school committee, because this is all unprecedented. So that's another factor.
I have a follow-up question to that point. Circuit breaker is obviously a state fund.
That's a state
But
fund.
where do they get the state funds? Do we know? It's not from federal funds.
You know what? That is an excellent question, and given what's going on these days, I will be.
I do believe it's part of the state budget process.
You think it's state?
Yeah.
It's state budget process, it's not
Yeah,
federal.
that was my understanding, but then again, you know how sometimes, even though state funds, you find out that from some other way it might be from the
Yeah.
federal government, and that happens too. So I just wanna, and I might even take another look at things.
I
just
only
because,
asked so we
yeah, I
can
know, I
prepare
totally understand.
accordingly.
I don't know if we can prepare, but yeah.
Well, knowledge is power, right?
Yep, yeah.
Well, thank you.
So I did want to break that out, but again, it's just February, we have some time. We'll be watching what's going on the revenue side. The more we go from February towards the end of the fiscal year, the more we're getting closer to the end of the year. So there's less liability exposure for repairs to the buildings. Once you get past winter, there's less liability exposure for, it's not cold anymore, the heat or whatever. There's a lot of factors that you're coming, So that's particularly for school choice, to see what we'll have between general fund and school choice. That's the other big bucket. And then we'll be reviewing and possibly updating circuit breaker and other things as well. I will be looking at all those revenue offsets that I just enumerated. I did a lot of work on preschool, in the athletics. I got the participation numbers and things of that nature. We haven't brought to the school committee yet whether or not we want to take a look at adjusting any athletic fees. And even if you don't this year, I think this is the last year we can actually do that, and still, even if we keep them level this year, we really need to keep looking at that going forward. But we'll have that discussion, see what the school committee thinks about that part of it. But some of our decisions, might change just because we don't know what's going to happen. But again, and we will also be going back to all of the administrators,
I'll get to that,
principals, having really taken a real deep dive. This is that first preliminary budget, because we need to get it all over to the town as well in February. We'll be sending it to the finance director and the town administrator tomorrow. And then we will continue to work on this right through the April hearing, and depending on what's going to go on, it might even be after that, and right through May until we have the annual town meeting for the appropriation as well. And be working with the town too as well, the various things as well, so.
Any other questions from anybody?
I do too.
No, you can go. Mine's like a little veering off if yours is in line with where we were. I didn't want to pull us in a whole different direction.
Either way. I'm just thinking out loud. So is there a way, because we're the in-district and out-of-district special education transportation, where some of that is vocational transportation, is there a way that it could, because it's curriculum, right? Like, they need their transportation to access their curriculum.
Are you talking about in-district?
I'm talking, yeah, like our stars and our stripes kids
Yeah.
that go out, because this says
Yeah,
and
the special
vocation.
education,
Right.
vocational.
Because it says
Yeah.
vocational transportation.
That's
For
still
special
in,
education students.
that's
yeah.
still in, that dollar amount
Yeah.
isn't what's driving it. I
It's not a
forget-
driver.
small.
No, I'm just,
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about, like, when we talk about, like, things that we have to purchase and buy, that would be like me getting a textbook, in my mind, because those students have to get to the community, that's their curriculum.
Correct.
Yeah.
So is there a way that some of that could be looked at in that, through that lens?
Meaning,
Instead of having
Do
it
you
on the
understand what
town
I'm
sign for the transportation, it should be part of the curriculum piece in the school budget versus the town side.
Things
But it's a s-
Oh, no, we-
with rural aid.
Yeah,
it's the same,
yeah. I don't know how that.
I'm just,
Yeah,
It's an
yeah.
opportunity to explore. I would say we should explore it
Yeah.
because you can get reimbursed on the school side versus the town side, is what you're getting at.
yeah.
yeah, and youth funding that maybe.
And that might be palatable to the town side.
Oh, that won't get reimbursed. That's a very small amount, and it's for all the students in that program that go to, like, say, Hannaford's, and that, it's not part of that at all. It's not like, it's really the out-of-district transportation that's reimbursable. The total amount in that budget doesn't even come close to the threshold.
No, I'm
Yeah.
just, I'm thinking about,
Yeah.
I'm trying to be creative to think, how
Yeah.
can we take what money we have
Yeah.
and move things around so that we could use some of that? I'm just,
The rural aid funding, which Courtney will speak to, I believe, later on.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's money that we receive from the state once annually, and it fluctuates, and we've seen it as low as $50,000, $60,000. I think this year it's like 144, 155, 165, and that
Too many
and that dollar amount fluctuates. But we use that for one-time expenses. And typically what we've done with that, and when we find out about rural aid, we find out about rural aid in
Recently, yeah.
October, November, and then we have to spend it by June 30th. And we've typically used that money in order to be able to fund computers, textbooks. And as soon as you take vocational transportation out of that equation for the town, it's going to be almost impossible to put it back back in. In terms of the creativity for transportation, and that, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say it, I think I said at the beginning, the goal is always to keep students in district. You want them in that least restrictive environment, you want them here with their peers, you want them in their community, riding the buses, walking the halls, eating in our cafeterias. The mental health issues that we're seeing locally, statewide, and nationally are tremendous. And we have a population of students that, in order to get the help they need to be successful and be able to take that next step, need to go somewhere other than Douglas Middle School or Douglas High School to receive that. We're not a therapeutic institution. We're not a hospital. And we need to send kids there. And I'm grateful that we found out about these students. I'm grateful that we caught them early on. I'm grateful that they're getting the help that they need. And I'm also grateful that we've been able to budget conservatively so that we were able to fund it this year out of the budget without having to go back to the town for it. That we were able to fund it out of this year's budget without having to dip into our operating, which would mean freezing or potentially laying off staff. And that we didn't have to dip into school choice to be able to fund that, to have that, to do that carryover. I know Greg's looking at bus runs, and is there a way that we can combine bus runs? And it's complicated because the days of just having one or two vendors are over. So we have 8, 9 vendors, and we might have a vendor that's picking up 2 students in Sutton, 3 students in Uxbridge, 1 student in Douglas, then going up to Millbury and picking up 2 more, and then driving to Worcester.
and they can't
And we
be on
do-
the road for more than.
And they can't be on the bus for
Exactly.
longer than an hour, and some of the buses have 8 seats, but what happens is, a lot of the students need medical attention on the buses, some of the students need a bus monitor, so you can't put 6 students on the bus, you can only put 4 students on the bus, because everyone has a monitor, and you need seats for it. So then the ability to combine routes becomes more complicated because now you need 2 buses.
But we do it.
But we do it.
We do have cost sharing.
Yeah.
They actually invoice, each district appropriately. You do the agreement that way, and you get the invoice.
And
goes to
people
both
say, well, if
districts
you're
for
sending
their
2
share.
kids to one spot, why can't you put them on one bus? It's because, one, we're sharing the bus with other communities and other students in order to lower our costs. But also, as you point out, students shouldn't be on a bus for longer than an hour. So if you extend those cost shares, to have a student on the bus for an hour and a half, 2 hours each way is, once against the law, but 2, it's not the right thing to do. So,
We also have, as you know, the schools are located in,
Right.
they're all over the place,
Well, and never
That's a
mention-
problem. They're not all going to Worcester.
Right, and not to mention that we have a
Not at all.
driver crisis.
and we,
So you kind of are at kind of the thing. My second question would just be, and you kind of alluded to it, but this is what is being seen across the Commonwealth. Like, the needs of the students are rising across the Commonwealth. So this isn't just Douglas doesn't have what they need. The children in the Commonwealth are struggling, and all districts are in similar positions, if not significantly worse than we are.
Oh, yeah.
And our students, to the best of our ability, have everything that we can possibly give them. But this is just where society is right now. And the kids have needs, and we need to take care
we need to
of
meet them. Yep.
And I know that the families, I would think, would appreciate the fact that we are able to recognize that we're unable to do the services here, and we need to place them in out-of-placement, right, at no cost to the families, because it can be staggering, the amount of money, right? And so the fact that we're still able to supply a caring and learning and nurturing environment for our students here, as well as I go out-of-district placement, is the right thing to do for all of our kids.
And the fact that we do get that circuit breaker reimbursement funding from the state is, I'm grateful we do get something, because, there are a lot of things in life and society that you kind of have to share the cost, no matter where what level it's coming from, and that's one of those things. So, and that's why they reimburse, like you brought up, we'll get the funding next year for the actual expenditures from this year. And they do have rules about how much you are even allowed to carry over. So you're not allowed to build up a war chest or anything. It has to go towards that. We do apply it. We apply it all the time. And I bring that report to you, that trend analysis. It shows you a number of years to show what we brought in each year and what we spent, what we're carrying over, the number of students that are eligible, the threshold. I have all that data that I provide every year, but it's good that we do have that funding, to offset.
So that was actually a big part of my question. I really wanted you to be able to address to taxpayers and to the parents of the community, why was Douglas Public Schools unaware of those urgent needs? But it sounds like it was mental health and maybe just absolutely necessary and could not be foreseen. And I want to make sure we address why are Douglas schools not meeting those needs? But it sounds like it's clinical to the point that we just cannot.
Yeah,
And that's something
and again, we've all seen kids spiral. Again, some were move-ins halfway through the school year, some were changes of placements, so there's some nuances there. But a lot of it with mental health, there's a trigger.
Yeah.
And there's something that happens. For a lot of students, you have something that happens in school, and then you put them in a 40-day assessment. And out of that 40-day assessment comes a placement. Sometimes it's, okay, you're all set to go back to the public schools. Sometimes DMH steps in and says, we need to put this student in another setting to better meet their needs. So it's not like this was, a lot of these students were learning disabled students who weren't making effective progress. The majority of this is mental health and events that occurred that drove the need for the out-of-district
And
placement. And I'm trying to be
unforeseen.
careful
There was
to
no way
protect
to predict.
protect the anonymity and the privacy of kids, but, and again, we know that mental health issues happen throughout the year, and some of them we're able to handle internally, or parents are able to handle at home for, in small contained cases, but sometimes they grow.
And back to what Beth brought up earlier, too. This is not a Douglas thing, no, like you said.
Oh, yeah.
It isn't. It's burgeoning, across the state, across the nation, and it's sad. But again, back to what Heather said, I think we all agree that, none of us would want to have a child suffering like that, and it is suffering. So I'm very glad that we were able to take care of it. We didn't have to go back to the town, and these children, our students, are getting the services that they need for very severe crisis situations that none of us would want to be in ourselves or want our own children to be in. So I'm very, very glad about that. We'll figure it out. We'll
And
figure
they're
it out.
residents, like these students
Yeah.
are residents, they're
Right.
residents of Douglas,
Yeah.
like they're citizens, just Paul because of my job. DMH will not, just for anybody that doesn't know, DMH will
Not
not do
fund.
anything to do with education. They will only do for therapeutic care, so we still have to manage education.
Correct.
Yeah.
Good to know. Could I jump in with one more
Absolutely.
question? In this 44+% increase, removing the increase of students that have needs that need to be met, how about the baseline? Do we know if just the regular per-student cost increased?
They did. So Dr. Rosenthal presented me a list of increases in transportation from 25 to 26, and you saw them go up, again, I don't have the numbers in front of you, from $48,000 to $51,000, from $68,000 to $72,000. So it's again, out-of-district transportation per student is in that $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 range per student, depending on how far they're going, how many
They're all
days
over
they're
the
going.
place, yeah.
But we
All
roughly,
over the place.
saw a $2,000,
Yeah.
$3,000, $4,000 increase from 25 to 26 in it, so roughly about 10%.
Okay, so when we're looking at this number, it's more like a 34%, taking that into consideration based on the needs. Okay,
Yeah.
so I think it's a little bit more palatable. I mean, everything is going up. It looks like everything's, yeah, you're right, probably on average about 10%. So that tracks. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I just have one. This is as of today?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
At
146. Which is why
you
Courtney
can
loves
run-
the
you can
timestamps.
Timestamp.
Well, you can run a chart of accounts at any time. That's when she printed. So I just want to make sure.
Oh, no, but this is, the prepared budget, yeah. Yeah, what everybody submitted and all that, yep.
So this is as of February 5th. And
Yeah.
this
And
is
it's been
not
changed 100 times.
what we're going to present. This is as of, it will fluctuate as we go through and
Yes.
refine it.
Yeah, and I always say that when I send it over, and they know that, yep.
So the last chart is our FY '26 preliminary budget summary. So our FY '25 general fund budget appropriation net offsets was $15,343,852. The town appropriated an additional 4% increase for FY '26 based off that $15 million in the amount of $613,742. So our total FY '26 town appropriation is $15,957,606. At this point, our proposed budget is $19,628,853. That's where we're at today at this moment in time. One thing I've learned in working with Courtney, and we say it over and over and over again, haste makes waste. And we have time to work on that number. What we'll do now at this point is go back and work with our principals and our directors and look at our line items. So this is what they proposed. So we'll go back and we'll look at our supplies. We'll go back and we'll look at our textbooks. We'll go back and look at things line item by line item to be able to reduce some of that $19,628,000 between now and our public hearing. At this point, we're comfortable using in grants and revolving funds to offset $2,402,510. When I first started working here, I pushed Courtney to get that number higher for this February meeting, and I've learned to trust the system, because as we get closer to April, she's more comfortable in, and the picture is clearer as to what we can use for school choice. The picture gets clearer for grants. We get more information from the state, and we're more comfortable in hopefully increasing that number between now and our public hearing. So our FY '26 general fund budget net offsets is $17,216,343 for a delta of $1.2 million. I want to talk a little bit about that, especially the 12.2% increase from '25 to '26. Since I've been here in 5 years and we've presented budgets, that dollar amount has been as low at this point as $280,000 and as high as 1.2, 1.3, 1.4 million.
Most of the time on the high side.
Most of the time on the high
Most of the years I've
side.
been here, the 13 years.
It's been,
you know,
it's been
yes,
on the
yeah.
high side. Last year
Yeah.
was at roughly $286,000. The year before that, it was roughly $820,000, and I think the year before that, it was at 1.1 million.
Yeah, they usually are.
So it fluctuates. What we want to do is, as we go back and we look at this, we really want to be mindful. We have 2 months to come back for our public hearing. And what we don't want to do is, we don't want to say, we're going to make this cut, and then find out in 2 months that we don't need to make it and have to come back. And we don't want to play that yo-yo game back and forth.
That gets messy, too.
It gets messy. We want to make sure we have the time. So Cordy said, I think maybe I can push. What if I said, let's not do the what if, let's not push. Let's present where we know right now and are comfortable. And then, once we prepare this, now we can go back and spend February and March going back and diving a little bit deeper, and then massaging things a little bit to bring that number down. We just didn't want to present something now on the lower end and then have to come back higher. So it is a big number, I'm not going to lie. It is a little bit larger than what we've seen in the past 4, 5, 6 years, but that was done purposefully and mindfully because we didn't want to rush and say something in February and then have to retract in 4, 6, 7, 8 weeks. So we just want to be careful with that. And then finally, our next steps is we have a Finance Committee meeting on February 25th, which we'll be presenting. We'll do an update at a school committee meeting on Wednesday, March 19th. We have a Finance Committee public hearing on a date to be determined, which I think came out, but I'm not 100% certain.
Which night we go?
The school committee public hearing is on Wednesday, April 2nd, and the annual town meeting is on Monday, May 5th. So over the next 2 or 3 school committee meetings, we'll work on this and come to you with a balanced budget and how we got there. Questions?
Any questions?
I just want to say, like, we started off talking about how 85% of the budget is driven by salary, and we took a lot of time to talk about special education, which is a very low amount of the budget. So we have, you know, obviously we've had negotiations, we have to take care of our staff and we have to pay them, but we spend a lot of time talking about special education because we think that that's super controllable, but it's not.
It's
Our
not.
students need to come first.
Correct.
So, just throwing that out.
Thank you, I appreciate that. All right, segueing next to another topic is our first reading of IKF graduation policy and competency determination. As people are aware of, in November, question 2 eliminated MCAS. But the nuance of the language is that the law stated that every district must have a competency determination above and beyond graduation requirements. The way the law was written was that competency determination was determined by your MCAS score. All the law did was eliminate MCAS. Now, every district in the Commonwealth has to come up with a different measure for competency determination. So what you have before you now comes from some highly suggested language from the state level. This is language that we've looked at from the state. This is language that is consistent with a lot of what's happening in the Valley. This has been reviewed by the high school and by our counseling department, and we also had our attorney look at it to make sure that everything is in order. So I know it's going to be boring, but I think it's important just for us to read it paragraph by paragraph so everyone understands the implications and what we're looking at. So the first part of the policy is to eliminate the following language. And it says in the policy, MCAS, in addition to the graduation requirements established by the Douglas School Committee, as listed above, all students must pass MCAS competency determination to obtain a Douglas High School diploma. We're removing that. And what we're proposing to add is the following. In order to graduate from Douglas High School with a Douglas High School diploma, a student must satisfactorily complete the local graduation requirements established by the Douglas School Committee and earn competency determination in English, math, and in improved science. So that just spells out what competency determination is measuring, which is what we've been doing forever. In order to be eligible for a certificate of attainment from Douglas High School, a student who does not meet competency determination must satisfactorily complete the local graduation requirements and additional criteria set forth by the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. So just as we had with MCAS, if you passed your local graduation requirements, but you didn't pass MCAS, you could still get a certificate of attainment, and we're going to continue with that. Third paragraph, as defined by the Mass Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, the competency determination shall be based on the mastery of common core of skills, competencies, and knowledge by satisfactorily completing coursework that has been certified by the Douglas Public Schools as showing mastery of the skills, competencies, and knowledge contained in the state academic standards and curriculum frameworks in the areas measured by the MCAS high school tests. So all this is saying is that MCAS measured competency determination in ELA, math, and science. Our courses are aligned to the state frameworks. The MCAS test tested the state frameworks. So we're going to continue with courses in ELA, math, and science. Students who have previously earned a competency determination through a regular or retest administration of MCAS, including the November 24 retest, or a DESE appeal process on or before December 5th, 2024, have earned their competency determination. So if prior to December 5th, you pass the MCAS, you're all set. So juniors and seniors. Students in Douglas who have not yet earned their competency determination by a passing score on the appropriate MCAS test, ELA, math, or science, prior to December 5th, can meet the requirements for competency determination through receiving a passing grade in the following certified courses. So for our sophomores, for our juniors, and for any senior who hasn't passed the MCAS, and obviously for freshmen too, the way you will show that competency determination is through a passing grade in biology, in Algebra 1, and you could either have taken that in the 8th grade, 9th grade, or 10th grade, geometry, English 9, or English 10. So if you, which are also our graduation requirements. So if you pass biology, if you pass Algebra 1 and geometry, if you pass English 9 and English 10, you've met the competency determination.
All five?
All five. Pass all five. The next piece is something that a lot of schools added. It says a portfolio alternative to the competency determination coursework will be available to a limited number of students who have not met the aforementioned criteria. To earn the portfolio alternative, students must satisfactorily complete coursework from the required certified courses that showing mastery of skills, competencies, and knowledge contained in the state academic standards and curriculum frameworks in the areas measured by MCAS high school tests from 2023. The portfolio will be reviewed by the superintendent or designee and the building principal with input from the student, classroom teachers, counselors, members of the special education team, if applicable. So what does that mean? We want to make sure that we might have a senior who failed English 10 and went to summer school to take English 10. the way this is written now is you have to pass English 10. We might use that summer school course as part of the portfolio to show competency determination. You still have to take the classes, you still have to pass the classes, but with so many nuances and such limited time to do this, a lot of schools are adding that portfolio determination to make sure that kids aren't being penalized. Remember that this went into the state had a meeting with us in December, and we were hoping from guidance from the state as to what to do. We didn't get any. They said it was a local decision. So we spent the month of January coming up with this policy. We need 3 readings for this policy. We have a meeting now, we have a meeting in March, we have a meeting in April. So this goes into effect in April. We want to make sure that we have a policy in place to protect our seniors and for next year for our juniors. The last part of it says, should any additional mandatory requirements be imposed by DESE, those requirements shall be considered as incorporated into this policy until such time that the school committee convenes to formally adopt those requirements. We don't know what the department's going to do this year, next year, or the year after, but we needed to have a policy in place to make sure our seniors can graduate, next year to make sure our juniors can graduate, and that portfolio assessment gives us a little bit of wiggle room to work with students in case there's a nuance that we missed with a student having gone to a private school in grade 8, not having taken Algebra 1 in grade 8, coming to Douglas and taking geometry in grade 9, never having taken Algebra 1 because they went to another school where it wasn't Algebra 1, and now we have a student who didn't meet the requirements because they didn't take Algebra 1. That's where that portfolio alternative could come in. And there's a bunch of hypotheticals out there, but we just want to put a safeguard in place in case we missed anything with students over the next few years.
Can you go back to that example? So if they had not completed Algebra 1, how are you determining in the portfolio that they could have passed Algebra 1? Is that what we're trying to do?
Well, let's say they went to private school, and they came here and did geometry as 9th grade, and then they went to Algebra 2, and then they went to pre-calculus, and then they went to calculus. They obviously have the Algebra 1 skills, but because
so
they don't
we're
have a
just-
passing grade in Algebra 1, they wouldn't meet the determination.
Got it. I know, because I'm like, but I understand what you're saying. You can prove that in a portfolio that they passed Algebra 2.
This is just how they're thinking aloud, okay? And it's a crazy thing when I think aloud. It should be biology, or what's the other one that they take? Earth science, right?
Intro to physics.
Pass one of the two. Pass one of the two, right?
I would agree with that, just because those are the two.
Math,
MCAS.
math,
But we're not, we don't
offer the
we don't
physics, we
offer
just
intro
offer
to
the
physics.
biology. Okay.
So which is,
it's whatever the two they either take in 9th and 10th grade, right? It's not biology, both 9th and 10th grade, correct me if I'm wrong.
It's biology.
do they take intro to physics here?
We do not have an intro to physics class as of this moment.
Okay.
What's the 9th grade?
All ninth graders enter into biology.
What's 10th grade? I have no idea.
10th grade is chemistry.
So one of the two.
Chemistry.
Pass one of the two. Math, it's either Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2. And then for English, it's 9th grade English, 9th grade, and 10th grade English. That way, and keep the portfolio in there, but you're only giving them one science they have to pass. And if they don't pass that, they're automatically doing that. And I think that, to me, I don't want to be restrictive.
Is chemistry an MCAS? No. So what are the science-tested subjects?
Intro to physics
And biology.
Okay, so intro to physics and biology, so we only offer one of those two
But do
courses.
we offer physics?
We offer physics for juniors and seniors, so we could add, we could add physics to it as just a safeguard or a fallback.
I'm just trying to do a bigger loophole since we have flexibility here. I appreciate, but I'm trying to not have to make people go through this, because this is stressful on our students, especially in junior and senior year. It's stressful. It's stressful to the families. And if we have to come up with something, why are we going to restrict our food?
We can add physics.
And I think math should be all three. You know, put it all in there. They just have to, because you're putting,
As in an Algebra 1, geometry, like a combination of Algebra 1, geometry, or Algebra 2.
correct.
Yep.
Like, because some kids are going to be like, I do not like geometry. I don't want to have to take it. But now you're telling me I have to take it, or I'm going to have to do a portfolio review.
Or have to pass. What is passing like
about,
a
like,
C and above, or is passing?
Fundamentals.
Probably, it's my
Math
guess.
fundamentals.
75?
But the issue with math fundamentals is,
Whatever's a D minus.
65. Okay, yeah, I know, I'm like, is
It's
it
on
a D,
MCAS.
a C? I don't know.
But it's what we need.
yeah.
And do we have control over this?
So in terms,
Yes,
so
but no?
let me answer the first. So we'll add algebra 2, and you have to pass 2 of the 3. That's fine. In terms of the math fundamentals, remember, it's high school, it's high school standards for it. A fundamental math course may not, many times isn't at a high school level and
MCAS
isn't
is
meeting the
basically
standards
Algebra
or
1
the
and
curriculum
geometry.
frameworks for high school students. That's,
Why are we
the so
restricting
MCAS test probably didn't test too much around. It's algebra 1.
Actually, like making sure you have money in your account, making sure you understand interest and loans and like that.
We can.
Okay. But it sounded like the two of you thought we could not add chemistry. It had to be physics?
It had to be, because
So if I understand, I think I can explain it. So it has to be something that MCAS tested. The
Why?
MCAS tests, because that's what the state says.
But they said there's no requirement.
Well, they did. They just did away with the test, but you have to pass one of the standards that MCAS tested. And chemistry wasn't one of them, is that right?
To your point, we could, let me research it. I understand what you're saying. Let's see if we can add 3 sciences and students pick from past one of the 3 sciences for more options. Got it.
It makes it easier,
Yeah,
especially at
yeah.
the high school. You have enough on your plate. You don't want to have to be doing, again, I think it's taking care of our students.
Yep.
Their social, emotional. We are deviating, we're able to put it
And you know what's
upon-
funny? In all the conversations, did that come up in any of your roundtables?
No.
Yeah, it didn't come up in mine. It's funny, we never looked at that angle.
But I want to make sure that we're still compliant with
And
graduation
we're gonna
requirements.
check with that, obviously.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So let me look into see that, if we can actually do that, or if it has to be a formally MCAS-tested
To
subject.
me, one of the main problems is the fact that DESI really hasn't given us guidance and
Correct.
said,
Yeah.
good luck.
Correct.
We as a school committee can make a
That was
determination, and I get that we're trying to be like with everybody else, what everybody else is doing in the district, right? But I think that if we can do this within the parameters to meet the intent, why would we limit our students?
I also think that last paragraph, that if there's any additional mandatory requirements, that paragraph, so if they come back and they say, no, you don't have to pass MCAS, but these are the ones it kind of covers us if we have to go back and.
And again, the rumor out there is that this is a political match between the Department of Education and teachers' unions. So it's the whole push-pull of, the MTA put this on the ballot, and now
These are
the
the
Department of
consequences.
Education wants to fix it, is supposed to fix it, and they're pushing back, saying, we didn't want this to happen. So it's that push-pull. And what we're trying to do as superintendents and school committees and school districts is not get into that political fight to harm kids.
Like to
So let
see,
them figure
instead
that
of
out.
Broader, if we can make it a little broader.
Yep,
give
I'll
a
look to
little
see how
more
we can make it
wiggle room.
broader within the parameters of what the law means.
And I don't disagree, but this center paragraph makes me worried, because it's defined in there that it has to be based on the state academic standards and curriculum frameworks in the areas measured by MCAS.
Right, as long as it's in MCAS, like I said, I know Algebra 2 is in MCAS.
I don't remember. I blacked
is
out when I took it.
MCAS goes up to Algebra 2,
Yes.
so it includes
retest
Algebra
up to
2.
geometry.
MCAS did not,
We'll just have to
it
make
doesn't?
sure. We just have to make sure.
It's an algebra 1 in geometry.
Yeah.
exam.
Okay. Let me look into it, and we come back on the 19th, I'll fix it. Good point, Kevin.
Okay, sorry, along the same train of thought, same paragraph. I think going forward, whenever we do the policy, anytime that there's a reference to the frameworks measured by MCAS, it has to be spelled out what those frameworks are. And the only reason why I say that, going forward, in 20 years, we're not going to know what MCAS was.
True.
So we don't have to go back and rewrite the policy. You can write MCAS, but it has to be, I think, spelled out. There's another area at the end where it says the same thing in the second to last paragraph. And just a couple typos.
Yep, so, thank you.
What's the plan for rolling this out to families so that all, especially our current high school students, know that this is coming, understand the requirements and so on?
So Rob, do you want to come up and talk about what you guys have already done? And again, I think this only impacts right now 2 or 3. If that for seniors, they're the ones who we're most concerned about, but I'll let you.
But in some ways, these are our graduation requirements anyway.
Correct.
So they have to pass these classes to graduate anyway.
Right, right.
So, I'm hoping to clarify some things, listening and kind of doing a few things in the background there. So, obviously, we have a lack of guidance on competency determination. We've held our meetings. I've held meetings with area principals. We kind of talked about various items. Some people wanted some various things inside of their competency determination. Some principals came back and their school committees have already decided on things, all kind of around, they're all kind of around the same wagons as Dr. Vieira has presented. Our graduation requirements as a whole is we are a part of Mass Core, which has certain requirements such as 4 years of ELA, 4 years of math, 3 years of science, 2 years of a foreign language consecutively and in consecutive classes, a full year of arts, so on and so forth, okay? So those requirements for a student to graduate from Douglas High School are not changing in any way, shape, or form. The competency determination is making sure that I think the students have finally reached that level of competency according to the frameworks, according to what the state has set forth, and with our teachers throughout 9 through 12 teaching those frameworks, okay? I think whatever does get decided ultimately will be well within our graduation requirements anyways, under that umbrella. So if we push it to 2 out of 3 on science, we'd have a discussion about that to figure out which sciences would qualify for that. Because that's a situation where we have some students that would be better off doing a biology style class, some students would be better off doing a chemistry style class, some students would be better off doing environmental science or something along those lines, perhaps even an engineering-based class. So there would be some lengthy discussions about that. As a former math teacher, I'm always a fan of increasing the math requirement. But again, these come down to discussions that we have to come up with and mutual agreements along the way. But yes, it is open for discussion. I do believe it requires a bit more of a dive on our end.
Good conversation, good questions.
I'll be interested to know, so the Every Student Succeeds Act, right, is like, it'll just be interesting because we're like stuck on MCAS, like not just us, but as a state, we're stuck on MCAS. But my understanding is that's to make sure that we don't just push kids through that didn't get what they needed in the school. So it's interesting, like, why is that the competency? Like, why is that, to your point, like, for English, for whatever, like, it's just very interesting to me.
Things that make you go, So I'll come back with some, which is why we do the 3 readings and why we have these conversations. If it's okay with the chairperson, can I do MSBA and then have Greg come up last?
Oh, yes,
To
absolutely.
flip-flop? All right,
Thank you.
thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
Last for me, and then we'll have Dr. Rosendahl come up, is a review of the MSBA Statement of Interest application process. What does that mean for people who don't know? The MSBA is the Massachusetts School Building Authority. You don't have any handouts
Yeah, I'm like, I
on
don't
it
think it's in here.
at this time. And the Massachusetts School Building Authority does two things. One, they fund building new schools in the Commonwealth. The second thing they do is they do what's called an accelerated repair program, which they fund fixing buildings in the Commonwealth. Courtney and I went to a meeting where they're looking to allocate over the next 2 years $300 million to fund roofs and windows in schools.
Yep.
And $250 million to fund heat pump conversion systems, to go basically from gas and fossil fuel to more environmentally safe and friendly heat pumps. So $550 million over a 2-year period. They still haven't determined what percentage reimbursement you get for that from schools. Sometimes it's 20%, sometimes it's 30%, sometimes it's 40%. It fluctuates. In order to be able to apply for the program, you need to have a roof that is over 20 years old, and windows need to be over 30 years old. So, not to bury the lead, but we're talking about the primary school here, all right? So, although we have sections of the roof in the primary that have been done over in the past 10, 15 years, the majority of the roof, all the windows, all fit under this umbrella. So what we need to do is, there's a couple things that need to be done. One, we need to fill out an application for the MSBA with a bunch of information and data that they need. The other thing they need, and we'll be coming to you in the next meeting, is they need a vote by not only the school committee, but by the Board of Selectmen, saying that they approve of the school department going forward with this process. And there's very specific vote language that they're looking for that we'll bring to you. Courtney and I go to the Board of Selectmen meeting, I think in a week or two, just to make them aware of this. Just because we apply does not mean that we'll get it. Right? Remember, $550 million sounds like a lot of money, okay? But we looked at quotes for a roof for the primary school, and that's $500,000. So, and in Douglas, we have 4 schools. There are 350 communities. You multiply that out, $300 million goes fast for roofs. Even if we get into the program, we still need Board of Selectmen approval to put a warrant article on town meeting floor to fund it, and then we need the taxpayers to vote to approve it. Okay? So just because they give us the money and we're accepting to the program, by no means automatically commits us to having to do. There are still some other steps down there. The application's due the end of March, so they were kind enough to give us 2 months to do it, and we will not find out until November, December of next year if we even made the process of the application. But I just wanted to bring this to your attention that we're going to have, at our next meeting, there'll be that vote language. I think given the age of that building, the outside, the core of that building's solid, the bones are solid, stuff's starting to go, right? And I don't see, in reading the tea leaves, that there's an appetite to build a new primary school in Douglas. But with $550 million floating out there, we'd be remiss if we'd at least apply to see if we could get 20% of a roof funded, 30% of roof funded, 40% of roof funded. Those windows, you get close to them, you can feel everything coming through. So to make that envelope a little bit more weather resistant and weather tight is a great thing. To fix those exterior doors and to put a new roof in, if they're willing to give us a portion of money for it, I think we have to at least look into it.
These
And
are
it's just-
expenses we're gonna have to do eventually anyway.
And eventually
We'll
we'll-
go after free money.
Part of that, look, we're all
Can't win
home.
if you don't play.
We're all, you can't win if you don't play. We're all homewood. The roof's over 40 years old.
Yep.
Okay?
45.
45. I think
Living
it
on
was a
borrowed time.
25-year roof. So it's doubled its life expectancy. So
Got our money's worth out of it.
we got our money's worth.
And it's just a statement of interest. It's only the very beginning. It's not a final fait accompli by any stretch of the imagination. It still would require, appropriations and tell me, all of that. It's just to let them know, it gets us in the pipeline for them just to take a look at it. That's all it does.
It's like on the town sign shovel-ready projects. We have already put the infrastructure in there, and we're just waiting for the funding to come through. So I think this is a great opportunity for the school.
May I, Madam Chair? I apparently have a lot to say tonight, so I apologize. A couple things. So, I think it's a great opportunity. My concern is the age of the building, and I know that the townsfolk probably don't have an appetite to build a whole new building, but I know MSBA does offer renovations, right? And they do feasibility studies where they can figure out the cost, which I'm sure obviously you know about, of renovating versus rebuilding, which one's more cost effective. My concern is putting in new windows, putting in a new roof. How much longer do we have? The building could start to fail with new windows or with a new roof. So then there's a waste of money. We only get so many years out of it, and then we're back to square one where we're going to have to either renovate or build, because it's not going to last forever.
You'll let me handle that one thing. Great question. Last year, Courtney and I went to the Board of Selectmen meeting on several occasions, asking for a warrant article to be put on town meeting floor in May to do such a study, to look at all of our buildings, and we even asked and offered.
That was the primary one. No pun intended.
And we even offered and asked to say, why don't we do a town-wide feasibility study because we're just one department of the schools, and of the town. If we're looking for not only our buildings, let's incorporate the town. So we went to the Board of Selectmen asking for a warrant article to be put on town meeting floor to fund a feasibility study, and at that time, there was no appetite to put that warrant article on town meeting floor to fund a feasibility study.
So the Board of Selectmen said no.
Correct.
So what would happen when, and maybe I'm wrong, I'm usually wrong, I'll say that. If we're lucky enough to get windows or a roof or both.
Or one, yeah.
Or one or none, but if something happens, so we get that, they're not going to pay the full cost. They only pay a percentage of the cost,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
So then the townsfolk are still going to have to pony up some dough.
Correct.
And that only increases the life of the primary school so many years. I don't imagine it's going to be more than 20. Maybe I'm wrong, but the school was built in 1979. So, and I only know that because I read the plaque. I'm not creeping the age of the schools. But it's wearing.
Correct.
And there's certain things that schools have now that I think the students at the primary school don't have access to. And there's only so much that we can do. I'm afraid we're going to go to the town, ask for a little bit of money, get the new windows, if we're so lucky, and then in a few years, we're going to have to say, oh, sorry, now we need a whole new school.
Well, the roof is really the.
I'm just using it as an example. I don't really know what it's needs are.
It really has to get done.
And again,
Yeah. Yeah.
we've talked a little
The
bit
minimum,
behind the
minimum.
scenes of it, and we needed the Board of Selectmen to put that warrant article on town meeting floor to do the feasibility study. In order to do this, we also need your vote and the vote of the Board of Selectmen. Who knows if once we start this dialogue about windows and doors and roofs, if the conversation evolves to, let's not invest the time, the money, and the energy in a roof. Let's look at a potential new building. But we need to start the conversation.
I'm all about that, yeah.
And we tried to start it last year with a feasibility study, and there wasn't an appetite for that. We're hoping this, one, starts that conversation, whether it's directly or
Awesome.
around the bend. But also, we know that the roof's failing.
And because there is a deadline, too.
And there is a
And
deadline,
once
March
you go past the
21st,
deadline,
yeah.
You're talking about FY '28 or after.
Oh, sure.
We
Yeah,
would
yeah, yeah.
really be-
Yeah.
And that would be.
And maybe it's not.
Not a good thing.
Maybe
Wait
it's
that long.
not. Maybe we
But-
pass on the windows and we pass on the doors. But right now, that roof's
Yep.
that roof's a concern. But we need to start the dialogue, and we're looking for different ways to continue the dialogue. But very, very good point, and I think we're on
I
the
want
same
to bring
page.
it up. Yeah, of course, right? And I think people are going to, if this does come to fruition, or, the conversations are happening, I think just regular old people are going to be like, well, what about?
Right, of
You know,
course,
so
of course they will.
important to
Yeah.
discuss.
It's a good question.
And the application process, Jeff has already started. It's I mean, it's probably a 3-4 hour application process to do. It's a vote and it's a vote. So let's see if we can get that in. And maybe by going to the Board of Selectmen and the vote, that then spurs additional conversations. So let's see what
Do you
happens.
remember when the deadline was for that?
March
other one, though?
21st.
No, the other one, I
that
don't
one I don't
remember,
know.
because we were concentrating on this one. Yeah, we'll have to look at
Is it
that.
possible to request a feasibility study from the town just on the primary? Because it would be a lot less expensive than doing all of the buildings?
Oh, we
Just-
did that as well.
Oh, and the.
We've been asking for several years.
Just on the primary, not all
We thought
four
it was
buildings?
just a primary, because that's our oldest thing. But then we thought it would be more,
What's the cost of a feasibility study, roughly? Do you know off the top of your head?
it depends on, yeah.
It's a
we went
chunk of
back and forth
change.
between Just
It's-
primary and then just our buildings, and then it was a primary, just a high school. We were just trying to get some interest in wanting to.
Is it half a mil?
Yeah.
No, it's like 60, 70, 80,000.
Okay.
No, yeah.
Too many zeros in my mind.
Yeah, a lot of it, yeah.
Listen to me, like I have half a mil.
It's about, again, 60, 70, 80, again, depending
And
on the
again,
scope.
it depends, exactly. It
Depends on
all
the
comes down to the
scope
scope.
of
the-
what
the
you're,
scope
of what you're
services.
looking to do.
Yes,
If you're
yeah.
just looking for a feasibility study for the exterior, feasibility study to get it up to code, a feasibility study to longevity, feasibility study to fix the HVAC units, again, there's different scopes. A soup to nuts one like that is gonna run you close to 100. Again, which again, we don't have in our operating.
yeah.
Which is why we were hoping to go to town, and we were hoping to partner with them to look at the police, the fire. We know the fire station's looking for.
There's a lot of old
for work.
buildings in town,
So
yeah,
it was
that's
a
what we were
great
thinking.
way to package it, and when you see communities successful, because again, the only way to fund a new building or a new project is with an override. The way you see these projects being successful is when you bundle them together, and you do two or three projects together. But we'll look at this, we'll continue to explore it. Questions?
Nope.
All right. Dr. Rosenthal. Talk for a walk.
Good evening.
Good evening. How's everyone? So thank you very much. So today we're going to be discussing a presentation. There was a request for some information and updates. We'll start first with a comparison. We separate out into three categories of tuitions, transportation, and contractual services. As you can see, the FY24 budget for tuitions, $1,644,000. That had two students which were residential who aged out. So significant amount of money from tuitions that reduced. If you move over to the FY25, that savings was then needed to, as we discussed, supply funding for the new students that were not identified. So you could see that it was almost a cost neutral. The difference, the real big difference is in FY24, the transportation is over $200,000 less. One, with transportation, you don't go to a residential school. So with the new addition tuitions this year, going to 6 different schools, we are having an increase in transportation costs. So we have that, and that was one of the big differences. Additionally, in our contractual services for out-of-district programming, this is an additional cost to the tuition. So that could be a one-to-one that's not built into the out-of-district's program. It could be BCBA consultation or direct services. There could be tutoring involved, bus monitors, extended day services, and nurses. So the contractual services are those that go above just the foundational tuition amounts. And we did jump up from 24 to 25 in that. If we notice 25 to 26, we're seeing a reduction again. So currently, we have one student that is projected to graduate in June. We have another student that will be aging out in May. Significant tuition savings in that. In addition, you will see that the transportation cost also reduces, and that's because we are not transporting to those two schools. We've been working very diligently with building principals, the coordinators, to make sure that any concern that might rise to the level of needing additional support next year is projected out. Some of the budget already has that in there, just to make sure we're being conservative on the safe side. So with that, we are seeing a reduction again of tuitions and transportation, and a little bit in the contractual services. And we're being conservative in making sure that we won't be hopefully in the same spot here. One thing that we can't control is students moving into the district. There are move-in laws, but they do not associate to collaboratives. In Department of Ed's guidance and thought process, collaboratives do not play into the move-in laws. So as of last year, we had someone move in May. We own that tuition this year and the remainder of last year. If it was a private school, that would have been the other district's responsibility because it was in their budget, and we wouldn't have had to pay for it this year. But since it was a collaborative, we owned it. So those are some of the subtle nuances that we just cannot predict sometimes, and it was the case this year for a kiddo. But again, we're projecting right now to be reducing our tuitions. Again, that's through aging out of an individual and another one graduating. So the previous slide was out of districts. For in districts, we broke it out into contractual services. And I did a slash for compensatory because some of the contractual services go into compensatory as well. For district.
From previous years, Greg, are we still doing compensatories from previous years?
So for this year, in the FY25 budget, we put in 30 minutes of OT. We owed OT.
Okay.
And so the parents have that. Right now, that's the rest of the compensatory are able to be incorporated into the school day. And compensatory happens, and every school district faces that. You have staff leaving and unable to fill a position, and it's part of what happens in a school day or school year. However, what I've been really focused on is making sure we communicate that with parents, and making sure that they're aware of it. And what we try to do is try to mitigate the impact of that staff being not present, and then come up with a compensatory plan that meets the students' needs to make sure they're able to cover the gap of the missed service. So it's not a true one-to-one to say. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's a different plan altogether. And that's what we discuss with the families between my office and the data. So as you see, we have district-wide contractual services. That falls under usually our assistive technology, vision instructors. We have orientation and mobility consultation. We have a student, a consultant for students that have hard of hearing, deaf, come in and do some FM system components to it. Then we break it out further for each building. Primary school has a speech caseload of an SLP and two SLPAs. That's where the cost for $121,000 come in. Our elementary school has speech and OT. The reason the primary school does not, we have a halftime OT that we have in district that is covering the primary school altogether. The caseload there warrants a halftime in itself, where we know that students gain skills and we can reduce the OT services over the course of through the year. So through their career, sorry, as they mature. So at the elementary school, we have an SLP and SLPA, an OT supervising a CODA, which is a OT assistant, and again, it's reduced down a little bit. It's $101,000. Middle school, a very similar setup. in the high school. As you notice, it's reducing a little bit each time. As students mature and they develop the skills, they don't require the service as much. We use French River for all of these services. They've been working with us for several years now. Speech has been through them. I did a dive at least of 5 years, so we've been using them for a lot. Last year we used them for PT as well. We tried to have OT fully in-house this year, but our OT resigned about 2 weeks prior, and when we interviewed individuals, we actually had someone, and we had the appointment letter, and then right before she started, she had some family concerns and couldn't take the full-time job. And at that point, we were so far into the year, and compensatory was already building up, we decided to go with French River just to make sure that students were getting the services they need. Our goal is this year to have things in-house again, but for now, for FY26, I want to make sure I'm conservative and have those funds in place so that way we're not scrambling at the beginning of the year. So,
Just for people to understand, a speech-language pathologist and a speech-language pathologist assistant, we've had a team in place here in Douglas for 7-8 years. First off, they're unbelievable. They've built phenomenal relationships with our staff, phenomenal relationships with our students and families, and they do a wonderful job. Secondly, you can't find speech-language pathologist or speech-language pathologist assistants. So although we are paying a premium to French River Collaborative for that, to move away from that and have to go out and hire 3 people when you know you can't find one, and you're rolling the dice for a very specialized skill set, you love to bring that in-house, but it's very difficult to do. And right now, the people that we have in place are doing wonderful things for our kids and are working. And the fear and the push-pull that we have in the conversation is, if you say you're no longer going to use them, French River's going to place them somewhere else.
Yeah.
We then go out and we interview, and we realize that we can't find anyone.
Well, you can find, but you're not going to keep them, let's be clear.
Or you're going to find you can't keep.
Right.
It's
Yeah,
going to
one or
be
the other,
very
both,
difficult to.
both.
Right.
Back
So,
and forth,
I
maybe.
mean,
Yeah, it's like speech-language
Yeah.
pathologists are like school psychologists. They're so difficult to find. It's such a specialized niche, and the skill set and the timing required to get that degree is so extensive that they're really difficult to find. And it's difficult to find good people. So I know the cost there is a lot. We're always looking to trim, but you don't want to sacrifice the quality of the people we have and risk not being able to find someone, and it's 3 people, and then going back to the drawing board and starting the school year off without 3 key positions in place, and then building up compensatory services along the year. So I just want to highlight that, because you see, it's a big dollar amount, but it's a very specialized skill set that's very difficult to find.
And the continuity as well.
That's
Very
important
important for the
for
continuity.
our students, right?
Yeah.
Because they build the rapport with the students. They know how to get them to work. And that is the key to everything that we do, right? Is building that rapport with the students and having that. And the specialists that we have are phenomenal. They've built the rapport with the students that you can see growth and depth year over year. So, I mean, just trying to find, like you said, certified folks that A, want to come to work, B, want to stay in the district.
Right.
So,
And I just
Right.
want to say one other thing, and before we go on. I know today's meeting focus has been on special education, and these are all of our students. Last year, during this time, we were having a conversation about hiring an additional STEM teacher for special areas for our elementary and primary, and an adjustment counselor for our middle school students. And there was a dollar amount and a value associated with that drove the budget. In FY25, at that time period, that's what we were focused in on working on. To go back to one of my favorite words for COVID, pivot, right? The needs of the district have pivoted this year and at this time. And the focus this year is on making sure that we have the budget in place in order to meet the needs of our special education students. We could be back here in April of next year talking about a new roof. Or
Where
something,
the money's
or
going.
something that,
Right.
or something that happened, all right? So, right now, it's a lot of folks, and I want people to keep in mind that every year, regardless of where you are, regardless of what budget you do, you're focusing in on addressing the needs in front of you at the time. And they change. We have 1,200 students in our schools with very complex and different needs. Last year, we were focusing on STEM and an adjustment counselor. This year, it's for that population. So I don't want this to become, nor should it become, an issue that, wow, this is driving the budget. Last year was 2 or 3 positions. We added why is it escaping me? We added some additional positions last year, which we needed at that time. And I just want to make sure that's out there and we're clear on it. That's all I have to say.
But actually, if I can say
Yeah,
just one
go
more
ahead,
thing.
yeah.
While we're preparing the budget, seeing we are here discussing the budget this evening, is when we're preparing this document, it's about all of our students, every single one of our students. That's the bottom line. Yeah.
So
I'm done now.
I also would
Me too.
need to talk, I have an open relationship with French River, and they know that this is something that has to be reviewed each year. So I do talk with Ann, the director over at French River, and say, the district will be looking to hire in-house. I have a fiscal responsibility to the district. I want to make sure that I have efficiently and effectively tried to explore all avenues to help make sure that students are getting what they need, and we're doing it to the highest level. So I reach out to Ann right around March, after February break, and just let her know that we will be seeking to hire internally. If there is a qualified candidate, we might not be using their services next year. Giving her a heads up early, and then just to see what is out there to explore it. If it's not feasible, and if the staff would not benefit our students, then we would stick with French River, and we would be very open and honest with them about that, so. And lastly, part of the update, I do want to highlight a few things that the department has done over the course of the last, I've been here 18 months, so about 19 months. So we did the training, we introduced the new IEP, that was over the course of last year, and it was implemented this year. I believe after the beginning of the year, it's been going along pretty smoothly. I'm hearing some good feedback from parents about quick turnarounds. We had the tiered focus monitoring from Department of Ed come out and review our records. I did a presentation on the findings. There were 4 findings that impacted special education timelines and requirements. We've implemented compliance checklists and oversight, and we're reviewing these timelines every week at a department meeting, and we're on target to be in compliance. Right now, there's a tentative date at the end of the month for the Department of Ed to come back out to review the records. So once I can confirm that, I'll let everyone know, but we should be all set on compliance for the corrective action. We had the Seaside Associates outside report that did a deep dive over 5 years and some of the recommendations from them. We've started our implementation of the subsequent postgrad programs. As we heard just last meeting, we're starting the Cafe 111, and how amazing that opportunity is for students within our high school. But then how are we carrying that down to our middle school and elementary school levels? So that's really important. We're moving to getting students off campus for this at the senior center and going to Hannaford's, and they're doing some of the grocery shoppings for the culinary arts class, and budgeting for that. We converted from East Bed to Power School. That was
Fun.
Thanks, Paris.
I
We all
don't-
know.
I don't like your definition of fun. That was a pretty heavy lift, but making sure that all information was transferred correctly. And that was between Dominic coming new to the district and having the changeover in the coordinators. It was pretty big, and it was, but we got through it. So we also started the co-teaching training last August, where we had identified pairs from each building come in, and they worked with me for 2 days. The plan for that now is to use those islands of influence, people who have the training, to start spreading the word, and then through the course of this year, identify people who would have more of this training and expand it out to others that are going to be in the co-teaching role next year, and developing a plan to roll this PD out this year, so in preparation for next year, to really bolster our inclusion programs. So there's been a few good things on there, so I just wanted to highlight some of that as well. Thank you.
Any questions? Any questions?
I know, shocker.
Thank you so much.
Good.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Other than reminding people tuning in, no school tomorrow, that's all we have. You're welcome.
You're gonna do laundry.
Moving over to the school committee and subcommittee accounts payable report. So warrant number 28 SCH 25, warrant number 28 ACHL 25 dated January 9th, 2025, a batch of 12 in the amount of $264,000.17, nothing out of the ordinary. Next was warrant 30 SCH 25 and warrant 30 SCHL 25 dated January 24th, 2025, in the amount of $51,667.99. There were 5 items, nothing out of the ordinary.
And we have warrants DMS 2504, 29 Meals 25, 29 SCH 25, and 29 SCHL 25, with a warrant date of January 16th, 2025. There was a total of 11 batches for a grand total of $70,251.04, and nothing out of the ordinary. We also have warrant 31 SCH 25, 31 SCHL 25, with a date of January 30th, 2025. There were 6 batches for a grand total of $32,611.52, and there's nothing out of the ordinary with that one.
Moving on to the consent agenda and the January 15th, 2025 meeting minutes. If nobody notes any corrections, I'd be looking for a motion.
My only question is, should it say Assistant Student Superintendent of Business and Operations?
I
Courtney,
think it-
under
should.
non-voting?
It should.
When we did hers? Instead of just Business and Operations Manager? Under in attendance on the first page.
Yep.
So we would make those recommendations for that update and then make a motion.
I move to approve the January 15th, 2025 school committee meeting minutes as amended.
Motion made by Teresa, seconded by? Beth. Seconded by Beth. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Thanks. Next is the Douglas Elementary School Grade 4 out-of-state field trip. We actually have 2.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Hayes.
Been a lot of very serious topics tonight.
This is the fun
drive-in between the
stuff.
2 movies, they have the dancing animated popcorn and soda and hot
I
dog.
know.
That's what this part is maybe.
Okay.
Yep.
I hope it's that easy. Anyway, yes, so thank you for allowing me on behalf of Dr. Moniz in the 4th grade. He is proposing, we are proposing an out-of-state field trip for the fourth grade students to travel to the Orchestra Moves concert on Thursday, May 22nd, and that's hosted by the Rhode Island Philharmonic Music School, and this will be taking place at the Veterans Memorial Auditorium in Providence. And let's see, so it's, as far as it aligns with the standards, right, the Massachusetts Curriculum Arts Frameworks. And let's see, it has, this has actually taken place 2 times in the past, so this will not be the first time this has occurred. But fortunately, as a Title I school, the program is actually free for our students. We do have to pay for the buses, but this will be divided up amongst, by the families of the fourth grade students, and it will cost about $10 per student. They'll leave in the morning and should be returning to the school by noon, and there'll be instruction. All the students get an instrument, and then they actually get to perform. It's an interactive performance. So I've never seen it, but it sounds like it's layered and really fun, and apparently it's been very well received in the past. So just seeking approval to do that.
I love the idea and glad that I will not be on the bus ride home.
Do all of the fourth grade teachers attend with Dr. Moniz?
That's the expectation, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And there will be a nurse on the field trip if needed.
Yes, yep, and then some chaperones as well.
Any other questions? I've been looking for a motion.
I move to approve the elementary school grade 4 out-of-state field trip to the Veterans Memorial Auditorium on May 22nd, 2025 in Providence, Rhode Island.
Motion made by Megan, second by?
Julia?
Second by Julia. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? All right, awesome.
Thank you very much. Thank you. The next one is grade 2, and the grade 2 team is requesting permission to travel to the Roger Williams Park Zoo for a field trip that will meet the grade 2 life science standards. This will take place on May 9th. 9 teachers, 1 nurse, 12 chaperones. Again, this will also be in Providence, Rhode Island. Our PTO will be covering the costs of the buses, and then the families will be asked to pay to contribute to the admission costs into the zoo for the students.
Anyone have any questions?
I guess I do. Why are the buses double?
It's a longer trip.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's a great question.
It's about 10
This is a
minutes from each other. This is my own stopping ground. I used to live in Cranston, so I know where the zoo is.
Oh, they're close.
But not really. Veterans is at downtown Providence. This is not downtown Providence.
Okay.
This is on the Cranston-Providence line.
Yeah, it is farther, and it's a longer trip.
Okay.
So
It is.
we'll have the buses yeah.
I just saw Providence and I was like,
No, it's downtown Providence versus Providence.
And the first one, they'll be returning to school at noon, but this one, they're not even leaving Roger Williams till 1:15.
Yeah.
As long as bus time.
yeah, no, I'm down with it.
Good
Just
question.
curious.
Is there any reason they're not going to Southwick? I only ask because it's down the road.
Well, that's a great question, and I've not been to Southwick. I do know that the Roger Williams, they have elephants, which is
And actually, the primary might go to Southwick. Does the primary go?
Yes.
Yeah.
that
So that makes sense.
perhaps, but yeah, they're super excited about this
Good.
trip. So
They've done a lot of renovation at Roger Williams Park Zoo.
Yeah, I've heard it's like really,
Great zoo.
really.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
That's a good idea.
Any other questions?
Not on this, but, so I'm assuming that the other grades have field trips that have been scheduled, but they're just in-state.
correct. Yes.
Okay. I just know we
had that
we missed one.
Fifth grade is they're still working on theirs. That's not set. For the fourth grade, probably wondering about the buses. So the fourth grade is actually doing a field trip to Samuel Slater's, which they did last year, which was very well received. The PTO pays for those buses because they pay for 1 grade level of buses. But because Dr. Moniz was able to get the grant for the participation in this program, then the families are not having to pay for any admission fee, but just buses. And Samuel Slater's, just so you know, or the funding that goes to the grade, per grade for field trips is a designated amount, $20 per student. Samuel Slater also, they offer they help subsidize the cost of the buses. So that's why we're able to do this.
My son last year said Samuel Slater was the best field trip he has ever been on.
They loved it.
Thought it was, and this kid is hard to impress.
In Sisson Webster.
Yeah, right in
I haven't
Webster.
gone to
He
that
was
yet.
like blown away.
Oh, well, that's great.
Yeah.
Ms. Keegan's asked if she could go on the field trips. I said, absolutely. Now she's going to want to go on the Samuel Slater one, too.
Yeah, there you
You
go.
got 3. Ken, you got an extra chaperone.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, like I did.
Never have too many.
Any other questions? Be looking for a motion.
I move to approve the elementary school grade 2 out-of-state field trip to Roger Williams Park Zoo on Friday, May 9th in Providence, Rhode Island.
Motion made by Meg, seconded by?
Teresa?
Second by Teresa. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Thank you so much.
Thank you
Best
very
of
much.
luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is the Douglas High School DECA Club's out-of-state competition.
And you already love the hats, so it's kind of tough.
I love it.
Hello again. Yes, so our DECA Club had several members qualify for the state's competition through the regionals. Regionals were just recently held at Nichols College for the first time, and we had a few kids actually win their competition, not just finish in the top 3 or 4. They actually won the whole thing. We have some very bright and very enthusiastic students here that are really engaged with this program and this club. You met 2 of them tonight. Yep. Obviously, with their boas and their hats, which we'll have to sweep up the boa stuff a little bit later. So DECA in the past has been able to attend the state's competition on an overnight trip, which has historically been held at the Copley in Boston, but this year it has been changed to the Seaport.
Nice.
Bougie.
Yes.
More of a challenge for you all.
So it's a little different.
Yep.
So it is a little different, but with the change of location, it's a little deeper into Boston than previous. So the students and the club advisor, Mr. Hillman, do want to attend this as an overnight trip, as they have historically. The dates for that trip are from Thursday, February 27th through really the morning of March 1st. And depending on what happens at states, depends on what happens beyond states, should they qualify again. I'll say,
Hoping you'll come back.
fingers are crossed. Fingers are crossed. So we have the competitions in various events, but we also have the quiz bowl that they compete in. So it's an overall competition. They get judged on their performance with each category. And maybe we'll come home with some more winners this year, which will be really nice. The students plan on leaving on Thursday, the 27th, return on March 1st. Transportation is scheduled to be covered through the Student Activity Fund, the DECA Student Activity Fund. Students will partially finance the required conference and hotel fees. DECA Club has fundraised through candle sales to offset this cost. Chaperone costs are generally budgeted in the school budget, in the high school budget each year.
Any questions?
I have 2. Who are the chaperones for this? Are they parents of the students?
So, Mr. Hillman, the club advisor, is one of the chaperones, and then depending on other faculty, people that will volunteer, sometimes we get other faculty members, sometimes we get a family member that has to fill in some information, queries, things like that.
Which leads me to my next question, which are, what are the sleeping arrangements for our students and teachers being an overnight trip?
All right, so sleeping arrangements are typically run by quads, and gender-based. So if there happen to be 3 females and 2 males, you'd get a double and a triple with overnight room checks. The The situation at States is a little different for DECA. The way they run things is there's an overnight lookout for each floor. Type of deal. Like, so there's constant, there's that constant monitoring piece that goes on throughout the whole competition. So some chaperones that do the DECA trip, so basically every chaperone that does the DECA trip also has a responsibility at some point throughout the trip to monitor students. So,
The students might not like this suggestion, but an old school one was just taping the doors. So if the tapes broke from the outside.
Fire hazard?
No, just like a masking tape.
Painter's tape.
Oh.
Yeah, so if it breaks, then you know.
No, I definitely would not.
right,
You leave, we know.
Yeah,
yep.
we know.
Put a bunch of noisy cans piled up outside.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
The tape ones to stay.
Yes, I love it.
Standard.
If you have long hair, the old hair
Oh,
on
the
the
hair.
hair trick on the door jam. But yes, so that's actually kind of how DECA runs their overnight programs as it is. So there is essential monitoring throughout.
I just want to make sure, too, that our teachers are not covered for any, like, liabilities that are happening overnight, and that I like the monitoring overnight, and sounds good.
Yes.
Any other questions? I'd be looking for a motion.
I move to approve the overnight trip for the DECA State Competition in Boston from Thursday, February 27th through Saturday, March 1st, 2025.
Motion made by Beth, seconded by?
Meg.
Seconded by Meg. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? Thank you so much. Best of luck to everybody.
Yes, good luck.
Thank you so much.
Not related to anything, but can we also look to update our letterhead to reflect Courtney's new position as well?
Yes.
Oh, it's on this one. Is it
It's
not?
not on all of them, but it's on some.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Sounds wonderful.
Oh, yes, okay. All right, the next item on the agenda is non-union school year secretaries pertaining to holidays. As you know, the superintendent and I have been reviewing union, non-union contracts over the past 2 years. We brought a number of things various times to the school committee. One of the areas that was not addressed are the holidays for non-union school year secretaries. Currently only have 2 in the entire district, but we're making a recommendation for additional holidays after reviewing school year employees, and for holidays provided, as long as school isn't in session, for instance, Good Friday, which applies to all of them. So currently, the 2 staff members are provided with the following 4 holidays: Thanksgiving Day, Christmas Day, New Year's Day, and Memorial Day. But we reviewed the other school year contracts, which would be all the paras and ABAs and the cafeteria workers, and it was way out of line. I felt
just
really
brings
bad,
them
actually. It
into
came up during
alignment
one of the
with everybody
payrolls after vacation day, and I forget how, I know, like, oh my goodness. So I immediately looked at it, brought
She
it
came
to all
running into
attention.
my office,
Yeah.
and we missed it, and we felt bad
Oh,
because.
I felt really bad, yeah.
The other two units have whatever is the 10, 12 days, and
Yeah.
these 2 people have 4, and it just wasn't, we missed it, we all missed it.
Yeah.
It's just not equitable.
Yeah.
So Courtney came, I'm like, I don't know how we missed it.
Yeah, so we went through and we checked them off, and also we've got 8 additional holidays that we're recommending being added. And that would be Labor Day, Indigenous Peoples' Day, Veterans Day, day after Thanksgiving, Martin Luther King Day, President's Day, Good Friday, if school is in session, and Patriots' Day. Of course, during the school year, of course, you wouldn't have a July 4th or whatever, because school's out of session, but, yeah, we felt really bad. So we would like to also make this retroactive.
That's just gonna ask, yeah.
For all current, the current employees to go back to the beginning of the school year, what would have been. It's just the right thing to do. Especially where we were remiss, and we would have done it, and it would have applied if the school committee so approved, to start at the beginning of the school year. So does anyone have any questions? Oh, and I gave you the impact. For FY '25, it would be 788.48, and then 55.52 for FY '26. It is incorporated in the FY '26 budget. Of course, if you didn't approve it, I would certainly remove it, but I want to make sure that I did have it in there.
No, I think it's important that we're equitable for all employees.
Absolutely.
If there's no more questions, I'd be looking for a motion.
I move to approve the following holidays for non-union school year secretaries if school is not in session: Labor Day, Indigenous Peoples' Day, Veterans Day, day after Thanksgiving, Martin Luther King Day, President's Day, Good Friday, and Patriots' Day. These payments to be made retroactive to the beginning of the fiscal year if applicable to current staff.
Motion made by Teresa, seconded by?
Meg.
Seconded by Meg. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining?
Thank you so much, and we will process that retro in their next payroll. Thank you. So the next item on the agenda is the FY 2025 Rural Aid Grant, expenditure of funds. As you know, we have to do that form that we do. Now, this one is, okay. Yep, I just saw that, okay. Yep, Paul just noticed something. Let me look for my.
That's what I kept on saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep, hold on one second, because I have in my, so this one here, we actually have to do a survey for the state, and it was due, what was it, last Friday? Friday, January 31st. Just with the projection of what you will, what you're intending on spending the funds on. Now, as you know, we don't
We
get it
can
in the
amend it
beginning of the
too.
year, and then we have to spend it by June 30th, as explained earlier. And that's why I have the language there, too, that, you know, kind of, we'll put something forward and then as amended.
So when we talked, so
go ahead while you
we
find
talked
that, yeah.
about the budget and appropriation and not wanting to rush things, we had to, by June 31st, sorry, by January 31st, submit to the state where we were going to spend the rural aid money.
okay.
And we were running around trying to figure out how we could fill that in with the current FY '26 budget, and we just ran out of time. So what Courtney will present in a minute is
Yeah,
what
got
we
it.
sent to the state as to where we're going to allocate the funds, but we can amend this.
Well, planning.
We're planning on amending it,
Yeah.
and what the hope is to be able to do is use that rural aid money to offset the FY '26 budget, but we had to get the information to the state before we did anything. So you'll see some stuff, and I say, why are you picking this and not the budget?
Well,
And
but
we'll
there
get
was,
to-
but there was
There's
a
some stuff
thought
too.
behind it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
again, it's only February, we need to wait and see. And it's hard because there are capital needs that, you know, just aren't getting funded by capital that, as you know, I was trying to do at the beginning of this year. And then luckily, I didn't do them because of what ended up happening later on too. So it is, I see there's a typo there in the bold there in the middle of discussion and analysis. So the dollar amount for the rural aid grant is $136,997.74. And we did put forward some capital items in technology, which you'll see on the third page, a spreadsheet. So, and we actually have received 3 quotes, and we're ready to go ahead with the high school auditorium projector, if that was okay with the school committee. That has been on capital for over 8 years. It is very old, and I don't want it to go like during a town meeting when it couldn't be used, or during, you know, so I thought, you know, kind of short money there for that. So we did, to be honest with you, I did ask Dawn to go ahead, get the quotes, and you know, that is set to rock and roll. The second one on the list here, which again is an academic need, to be honest with you, that's something that we would really like to incorporate in our budget. And it is one-time funds. It is something that the engineering lab, computers for the engineering lab, 29,000. I mean, to me, that's very huge, particularly with the high school. We want to maintain, we want kids to go from 8th grade to 9th grade, like we've talked before. We want to keep our kids in the high school. Kind of deal with that one, because it is for our students. And the next one down was also on capital. That one we could certainly remove if we, you know, had to. But that's the district-wide front-mounted field mower replacement. That's over $35,000. And also high school cafeteria tables. The full amount would be $73,206, but the balance that is in the grant, and then we'd have to come up with that differential in the funding from $56,636.74 to the $73,206. And those are just fairly recent quotes, those are likely to change. But the first 2, you know, I would really like to keep because of the projector. We just need if it dies, we're in trouble for a lot of reasons. We really need a projector. It's very old.
Well, it benefits the town too, right? The town comes to us for a town meeting, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, it benefits the whole community, not just.
Right, I know, we've had it on capital
And
for
so
8 years.
I think that's a no-brainer.
One of the
Yeah.
issues that we're running into too with the projector is that projector's 10, 12 years
It
old.
doesn't recognize when you plug it in.
Correct.
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
So,
Dawn did bring that
like,
up too,
we joke,
exactly.
but you need
Yeah.
17 dongles from your computer to plug
Yeah,
into.
It's not worth it.
Or is it 18?
18.
It's $18 you need
He knows.
to plug your computer into it to get, and that's just for the picture. It's another 17 for the
Well,
sound.
if you've been to town meeting, you know the challenges we have, right? And so I think this, to me, is a no-brainer.
So those two there are 45,000 out of 137,000 roughly. Again, you know, the second one, I don't know the school committee's thoughts on that as well. And we certainly can wait. We're not rushing. The only thing is that we have to have it spent by June 30th. So, you know, you get, at some point, you know, it's amazing how you go from February, you're thinking, like we said tonight, oh, we're beginning the budget, we've got plenty of time until you really think about it. We don't have plenty of time. It
Have to
goes so
procure it.
fast from February to June, it's not even funny. But those two there, and that's 45,000 of that, so.
And as we get closer to that April 1 public hearing and knowing what we have for funds, it's great to keep some of these capital expenses for the rural aid, but if we also need the rural aid to offset our operating, so we're not laying off staff,
Yep.
I'd rather do that. But,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
we need, but one, we have to do
So-
this and have you
Yeah.
accept the grant. Two, we just
Yeah.
need the extra time as we get closer to April 2nd to
Exactly.
have that happen.
So, but I did want to let you know that the other two, I mean, not that they're not, they've been in capital as well, but those first two really, you know, one is really instructional academic for the high school, for the engineering lab, and then that projector, you know, but we'll wait. And I always incorporate, I didn't, see, I've been doing too many things, I'll have to amend that. You know how I always put "or as amended" at the end of the, or as
Tisk, tisk.
amended, I'm telling you. Oh, if you only knew. But I am surprised I still have a brain. I think I'm still doing pretty good.
You're doing great.
Does anyone have any questions?
More just a comment, if that's okay. I think this is great. I'd say, you know, spend it any way you think is fit. My concern, though, it is waiting because, again, not to be a Debbie Downer, there could be some really heavy taxes on some of these bigger items if they're, you know,
That's
not
gonna be
already
for
here.
everything.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, when you're talking about 25% on top, like, next thing you know, we can't afford the projector. So I would think some of those things, especially maybe, like, let's not wait, maybe spend by the projector ASAP.
Oh, the projector, I think, does everybody, actually, but just, I
Yeah.
thought we were all set with that, but are you all okay with going ahead with the projector?
Yes.
Yes, everybody, okay, good. Okay, that's what I was gonna do, the projector, but the other one was, we were waiting
We're gonna wait
on
on
the
that.
engineering lab, okay.
I wouldn't wait on the engineering lab either. I think
No,
that's.
I'd get that too.
I think that's, I mean,
As discussed, you said the first two are the needed, and I was like.
those are
yeah,
bona
okay,
fide
let's do the
need.
first two.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's, to me, those two are a no-brainer.
You know, yeah. Because we really need.
That cost is only gonna go up on those computers.
Yeah.
Yes,
Oh, yeah, they are. And it's gonna be a lot.
And it's instructors.
So, I mean, I would
Yeah, I
rather,
would jump on it now.
Yeah,
Let's leave it there for now, yep.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, okay. Okay, so the only thing I would recommend on the vote, like, just add comma, or as amended at the end, because we want that right to be able to.
Yep.
Yeah.
so I'd be looking for a motion?
I'll move to approve the fiscal year 2025 rural aid grant in the amount of $136,997.74. Funds planned to be expended on capital items and technology, hardware, or as amended.
Motion made by Julia, seconded by?
Meg.
Seconded by Meg. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Good to go to get those first two items.
And, I could just, I'll have to use mine. If you could have that signed. That's what goes to the town.
Boss needs to sign it.
Okay, we'll go along here. So next thing I have on the agenda is FY 2025 General Fund Transfer Request Number 5. These are just doing some, I kind of ran out of time, to be perfectly honest with you. I was doing this right before tonight, just trying to, so, you know, we still have a ways to go, particularly with the special ed trying to cover and all that, as you can see with the last one. We still have to find more funds for that particular one, Douglas High School sped tuition to private schools. But, you know, this is just moving along, and, you know, general fund is still well in the black, as we know, over $500,000. It's not like anything, and it's the bottom line that counts, but it's just part of the cleanup. with regard to that. Does anyone have any questions? on this one, and then we'll just keep doing more and more, you know, with each meeting.
Be looking for a motion?
I move to approve the FY 2025 general fund transfer request number 5, school committee meeting, as discussed at the school committee meeting on February 5th, 2025.
Motion made by Teresa, seconded by?
Meg.
Seconded by Meg. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Okay.
The next one down is reclassifications, the FY 2025 reclassifications, number 5. The first one is just changing an object code from professional development to course reimbursement, and the rest of them is moving funds from general fund into grants. You know, we have to pay payroll when the people start, so if we don't have the grant yet, we have to put it in the general fund and then have to reclass it over to the grant. And you can only go back to the approved date of the grant. So that's what we do. We have to figure all that out. So that's for the SPED 240 grant, for the .5 clerk, and the FY 25 Title I grant teacher.
Any questions? Be looking for a motion.
I move to approve the FY 2025 reclassifications number 5 at tonight's school committee on February 5th, 2025.
Motion made by Meg, seconded by?
Teresa?
Seconded by Teresa. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Good to go.
Okay, the next one down, you had asked me to provide an update on special education, the 3 big accounts as we go through the year. There's just a slight increase since the last one. Well, I don't know if it's slight, a little over $100,000, not so slight.
Not so slight.
Not so slight, $124,000. But with regard to contractual services, and when I say contractual services, I want to be clear, it's what the 2320 function code, that's only medical therapeutic. Doesn't have to do with things added to tuitions or anything like that, to be really clear. So what I do is, you see what the original budget is. That hasn't changed since the last time, of course, the original approved amounts from our original budget. And then the next amount is the general fund, circuit breaker, and grant, 240 grant. What's been currently paid, and encumbered I put in the same this time. That's what happens when you have to do things so fast. But it's a total of $598,241 was budgeted for the 2320 contractual services line. We're now with current paid and encumbered, $833,666.69. So that's $235,425 roughly over what was budgeted. The next one down is the tuition accounts, and those 9100 through 9400 function codes. The original budget, again, same, $1,563,369. Currently, and this is as of 2/3, to be really clear, February 3rd, we have $1,628,766.29 for paid and encumbered, and that's just over by $65,397. And the transportation, we had budgeted $872,403 for special education only transportation. The current paid and encumbered for general fund, circuit breaker, and grants, $1,222,564.15, and that's, at this point, $350,161.15 over. So we're still, as you can see with the tuition, we're still waiting for another one to come in to be determined. Now, keep in mind, these figures can go up or down if things change. If anything changes, a child goes suddenly from, out of district to in district, to in district to out of district, or transportation changes, there are a number of things that can change. Or if a child doesn't ride a bus for some reason, they can't charge for not providing it. I mean, there are a million different things that can go on. That's just where we are at this time. So you see that overall is just over, around $651,000, okay? So now if you go to the next page, I'll go over the circuit breaker with you. And this is where, because really at this point, this is where we're adding it. So you can see, at least, I cut off all the earlier years. This gives you 5 years of data. So you can see the carryover balance we typically have. For FY, if you're looking at FY 25 and then projections, going forward. and I'm just updating this, I didn't change the date at the top, but this, it was updated after we met the last time, but I didn't have any additional changes. We originally budgeted the 982,000. The revenue that we're bringing in is 872,699. So you see the carryover is 654,333, and that's, roughly what we've been getting the last several years. And the revenue, a little bit less than prior years, that's for sure, 872,699, because it can absolutely vary, and that's why I'm being very conservative right now. You gotta wait right till what's at the end, because that's what counts. So right now, you can see the 982 is what we budgeted for offsets, and we have the additional 526,385 at this point, leaving only 18,000 for carryover in that account. So essentially, we're bringing it down to essentially zero. So again, I just want to remind everyone that we do rely heavily on offsets as part of our, we've got a gross operating budget, we have the town's appropriation, anything other than that to meet, we have to come down to the town appropriation. So you take our gross budget minus town appropriation, it's either cuts or offsets, one or the other. So that is a big hit to our budget, but part of it as far as carryover. But as Greg enumerated earlier, there were a couple of students that went off, so that's mitigating the tuition expenditure for next year. So that helps on the expenditure side. They go hand in hand, revenue and expenditures, especially in a school department budget. But that's something we're not used to. So that's why we need to really take our time and do some thoughtful looking through the budget, really looking at those projections over and over and over again as we go forward, and hope nothing happens to our buildings or anything that is any big repair, because it's all on us. We don't go to the town to, and again, I want to remind you, if you don't mind, I know it's late, but that's why, and I'm going to say it my way, okay?
You say
Because
however you wanna
sometimes
say
I
it.
go to meetings, and I'm going to come right out and say I do get criticized for being, not here, but for being conservative, okay? They look at those amounts, and they say, oh, look at what you have in here, why aren't you, like we're taking more money from the town. But I know this budget, not the budget, but the intricacies, that institutional knowledge, that it's hard to describe. It's all just in here. I don't know, it's not on a piece of paper, but I don't know how else to put it. But you kind of get to know your buildings. You know what's going. You know what might come down the pike. You know how old that building is or how old this building is, what you're starting to see. You start to see what's happening with staff. Even with staff, we talk about students having issues. Well, staff have issues too. Yep. That's just a fact. So they might be out more. So I know, okay, that means more overtime, more subs. There's different contractual things that I have to do. There are certain things in the budget that I budget for so that I don't over budget in an area, a cost center. I do a lot of budgets, like say course reimbursement substitutes. I don't allow, the principals do not do that part of the budget because each one might put in a large dollar amount for their school. I look at it, and I do a lot of trend analysis documents. I look at trend analysis, I look at what's going on in the world, I look at how many times people are out, in my head I kind of gauge. And so yes, I use all that, but I also will budget an amount in each building. And then I look at the total amount, because I can use funds from primary to cover elementary, or middle to cover high school. So I don't want to over budget and take maybe, we can't hire a new position we need because I've over budgeted in line. So I try to be very, very methodical. It's not a perfect science by any stretch of the imagination, but, so now I forgot what got me on that track. But anyway, it's about the revenues. It applies the same thing to revenues too. You got to remember our school choice, and that's the one I get criticized, it's always about the school choice. That covers all the things that break in all 4 buildings all year long. I don't know, I don't have a crystal ball, but I do have the knowledge, the institutional knowledge and the history. I can kind of, there's a lot of this too. But we can't just go to the town. So when you see that balance, in my mind, say it's a balance of, $800. We'll just pick a number. I'm saying, yes, but we've got 4 buildings, 145. Okay, so how much of that am I kind of holding aside in my brain for things that happen? There's a lot of things that come up. And as you know, there's a lot of times in order to make that appropriation every year, in fact, that we have to take out of our budget. And what do we say all the time? We have to wait until we close the year, see what our real, actual reconciled balances are. Then we can all make decisions about, okay, now we know over the summertime we can purchase those textbooks before the kids come back to school. They're still going to be here for when they get here, but we didn't make a decision at the expense of something else. We're waiting to make a decision when we know what our figures are. So there's a lot that goes into a school budget. It's not like any other town budget. The complexities are humongous, huge. So that's all I want to say. So that's why I am the way I am. I'm not, I'm not overly conservative. That's why I use the term prudently conservative. I made up that term when I was in Uxbridge. And there's a reason for that verbiage. There's a lot of stuff up here that maybe other people don't know because they're not in this every day. They don't work in it every day or with it every day. They just don't have that requisite knowledge to understand the complexities of it, but.
I want to piggyback on that. It's not knowledge about one thing. It's knowledge about a ton of different things, and a ton of different regulations, and a ton of different funding sources. I mean, it's.
School's extremely complex.
This is
Extremely.
impressive.
And all people need,
School departments are extremely complex. The mandates, everything.
and the conversations behind closed doors are priceless between Courtney and I sometimes. But remember that last year in FY '25, the majority of the school districts in the Commonwealth were cutting staff.
Yep.
And we added.
Yep.
All right?
Well, that's because we were also
Well,
really conservative with the
conservative.
ESSER funds, too.
Correct.
A lot of them
It was
got in
for a
trouble
lot
with the
of
ESSER
things.
funds.
yeah.
We
Yeah.
did not allow that to go into our general
Yeah.
fund,
Correct,
right?
correct. So, you save, you're prudently conservative, and you save those revolving accounts for a rainy day, and every once in a while they come up, and we saw that happen this year,
Oh, it rains.
and it rained.
It always, every year it rains.
Yeah.
But how torrential is what it's the.
We were able to recover that,
Yeah.
right, because we are prudently conservative based on your estimates, right? We're able to cover the cost within the school limitation of our budget.
Right.
Not have to go back to the town.
Right, yep, never even
And we're
thought
being
about doing
good
that.
stewards of the taxpayer dollars by
Yep.
being prudently conservative.
Yep,
And you also, Courtney, are amazing in your staff too, of like, people have questions, they want to know what we're doing and why we're doing it. They're like, come on in, I'll give you a cup of coffee, let's have a chat.
oh, I never had a problem with that throughout my whole career. I have an open door policy.
Right.
I've spent hours with people in prior districts where if
Right.
they want to,
That's
know
something
how
that's,
it works.
no,
Yeah.
that's something I find admirable, and for anybody that's watching at home, that's like, okay, so why are you doing this, why are you doing that? Email,
Come on
call,
in.
come in and ask, and we'll tell you. That's very admirable, and that's how it should be.
yeah, yeah. Any other questions? Yeah, I think that's it, yeah. Okay, all set.
Motion to go?
Any other topics not anticipated? I'd be looking for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion
All right.
to adjourn.
Julia makes that motion, seconded by?
Meg.
Seconded by Meg. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Thank you so much, everybody. See you on